So we will now move seamlessly on, ladies and gentlemen, to the next point on our agenda, and that also takes us to the second key topic of GFL 2019, which is opportunities and trends in the tech sphere and expanding digital economy. And we in the mainstream media are very prone to focus on the risks of new technologies. If you put AI into a random news search engine, you will find a lot of headlines that are anything from negative to dystopian. But interestingly enough, surveys of public opinion in regions ranging from the US and Europe to Africa show that people actually feel that by and large, digitalization and connectivity are improving their lives. At the same time, the polls show quite a broad awareness of risks and a clear expectation that policymakers, firms, tech firms especially, but also employers in general, should help to minimize those risks and maximize the gains of these trends for society as a whole. So that's why we have invited a very eminent panel of business leaders to talk about how to do just that, how to maximize the gains, minimize the risks, and talk about how current technology trends can be harnessed not only to support the bottom line of the tech titans, but also the larger economy and society. So our title is Reflections and Outlook on the Digital Future of Economy and Society, and it's my honor to invite the participants to come to the stage. So we'll take those three chairs, and I'll just put you right there, Charlotte, and we'll put Beatriz in the middle, and I'll take you over here, Mr. Todisco. So once again, I am going to keep the introductions very, very brief and just ask the audience to bear with me. I want to try to maximize our time for the discussions, but of course we have it all on the app, so if you want to know more, just please do look there. And I'll start by introducing Charlotte Dennery. She is CEO of BNP Paribas Leasing Solutions and has been with Paribas for 18 years, leading operations in areas ranging from insurance to asset management. Great to have you with us. And next to her is Beatriz Sanchez. She is a member of the executive board at the bank Julius, Baer and Company. She's the bank's head of Latin America and widely recognized as an influential leader of wealth management in the Latin American region. Great that you could join us as well, Beatriz. And jumping in for her colleague, Elke Magnet, who was not able to make it, is Angela Todisco. She has kindly agreed to be with us at very short notice. She is the Vice President and Head of HR EMEA North for SAP, and it's a great honor to have you with us as well. You are shaping and executing the people strategy for 8,000 people in the EMEA region. Wonderful that you could be with us. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, joining us by video, I hope, we'll know soon, should be Michaela Ruginswangonga. She is CEO of Volkswagen Mobility Solutions in Rwanda. Can I get a thumbs up or down as to whether we will be seeing Michaela soon? She's online, so we will see her soon. Then I'll keep on introducing her. She is CEO, as I said, of Volkswagen Mobility Solutions in Rwanda. She's a World Economic Forum Global Shaper and formerly worked for the Rwanda Development Board. She very much wanted to be with us live in person, but unfortunately, I just think I heard her. Unfortunately, she had to remain in Rwanda for a board meeting. So I think we can all understand that that was an important constraint. I'm just going to proceed and hope that when Michaela can join us, we will see her. So let me begin by asking each of you to tell us a little bit about how technology trends are changing the way you live and work. And we want to know how they're transforming your business and your profession, but if you want to say a few words about how you also see changes in your personal lives, I think that would be of great interest to all of us. And I'll just begin with the two financial sector representatives on the panel. And Charlotte, digital disruption is now hitting the banking sector in a very significant way. Venture capital firms invested 35 billion euros in fintechs last year. Tech giants like Apple and Amazon are also easing in. What do you see as the biggest challenge to the banks going forward?
I'm going to talk broadly.
Oh, take your microphone, please, right there in front. Yeah.
Yes, so I will start by talking globally about the banking area, but then afterward I'll talk a little bit more about my business, which is the leasing business. Talking about the banking industry in general, yes, you're right. It's just in the middle of
Charlotte,
a full
I will
disruption.
just briefly interrupt to say hi to Michaela, if she can hear us. Shall we just do a quick little test on that? We saw her briefly. Tech trends.
Very difficult.
Yeah, there she is. Hi, Michaela.
Hi, everyone.
Very nice to see you. Can you hear us?
Good. Yes, I can hear very well, and I'm glad to be able to join. Yes. Thanks.
Okay. I've introduced you already, and we'll come to you in just a moment with a question. So I'm going to ask Charlotte Dennery to continue, but it's great to see you there on screen. Welcome. So, Charlotte, please.
Yes, so I was saying that the banking area is in the middle of a full disruption. Just to give you an example, about 10 years ago, you used to go about 12 times in a branch per year. Today, those are French statistics, but I'm sure it's exactly the same for you. You are going at least once a year in a branch. And the way you want to be served is completely different from what you used to want a few years ago. You are now completely used to have your app on a smartphone, and so you are completely used to getting all the services and products that you want on your app. So what the banking sector has to do is to completely change the way they used to work. We used to push products to our clients. No, we have to change dramatically and put the client, the customer, at the center of everything and work on the customer experience for all type of customers. So we could talk about retail customers, wealth management customers, but also I'm mostly working on the corporate customers. And to talk about more specifically my business is a B2B2C business. My core competences is to finance the professional equipment of the corporate, and it's very vast. I can finance tractors, harvesters, PCs, smartphones, dentist chairs, whatever you can think about professional equipment. And the way I work is to work through the relationship with manufacturers or dealers. So when I think about customer experience, I have to think about different customer experience. My first customer experience is the way I deal with dealers. But my second customer experience is the way my end client is going to receive my product and deal with my products. And at the end of the day, there is a third very important customer, which is the employee. Because when we talk about digitalization, we are mostly talking about the full value chain. And the full value chains, of course, have an impact on our employees. 10 years from now, they used to have paper contracts. And in some countries, they continue to have paper contracts. But today, the idea is to transform completely their experience into something where everything will be full digital, from the starting point when you present the offer to your dealers or to your end clients, down to the signature of the contract, and afterward to the self-care clients that is in place. So to talk about the business, we are facing a real revolution. To give you some figures, this year, BNP Paribas globally is investing 6 billion euro into IT, and among which we have a specific program of transformation, which is of 1.7 million. So imagine the huge amount of investment that we need to make in order to shift completely the way we work so that everything is digitalized in order to serve properly the customer needs.
Thank you very much. And I'll just move straight away to Beatriz Sanchez and also ask you to weigh in, both in terms of the profession as a whole, and it would interest me to know how this could impact asset management, because clearly algorithms, big data, allow us to slice up risk differently than we would in the past. So perhaps you can say a word on that, and then, in addition, the Latin American region that you know so well.
Well, thank you very much, and hello to everyone. I totally agree with a lot of what my colleague here has said, but I look at this revolution as really an exciting opportunity for banks to move to a different level. I think of all of the industries that have been disrupted by technology, banking has probably been the last ones to react and the slowest to react. And it's really interesting because if you look at banks, we spend a lot of money on technology. We spend a lot of money on developing. We spend a lot of money on coding. Some banks, for instance, Goldman Sachs, they are probably one of the largest coders and software producers in the world, more than some of the tech companies. But then we've been slow to react to the changes in the market, the changes of the next generation, and the convenience that customers want. I know at Julius Baer, what we're trying to do is not only upgrade our technology, upgrade our data, update how we communicate with clients digitally, but also update our know-how and our knowledge for the future. And we've done two important things recently. The first thing is we have participated as a shareholder in the first cryptocurrency regulated bank by the FINMA, by our Swiss regulators. We hope to use that as a forum to learn about blockchain, to learn about really what is a virtual currency, how do you store it, how do you trade it, how do you value it, because it is a way of the future and it can't be ignored. We also in Latin America have just closed on a transaction where we are also shareholders of a local fintech. It's a local wealth management fintech, which really works with the rising middle class in Brazil. Brazil is one of the most digitalized countries in Latin America. Middle class is growing slowly, but a lot of it is underbanked, and a lot of it just does not find an avenue in the traditional banking system. So how do we provide talent? How do we provide know-how? How do we provide asset allocation strategies that those that have a little bit of money, but hopefully will grow in the value chain as they continue to grow economically and socially? So I think there's a lot to learn, there's a lot to do. But I also think that regulators and society at large also have to accompany us in that track, because the main area that will be impacted first is probably the retail area. Branches being closed, employees being let go, and socially that carries the cost. A perfect example is here in Germany when Deutsche Bank and Commerzbank were thinking of merging, and where it just politically was not acceptable for there to be so much displacement. So on the one hand, we're being pressured to change, pressured to digitalize, pressured to push in one direction. But on the other hand, the regulatory, capital constraints, legal constraints in society are stopping us. So I think it's work in progress.
And maybe we'll come back to that a minute later, but could you just say one word about whether it ever keeps you up at night that the fintechs might, instead of you sort of profiting from the fintechs, that it might be the other way around? They might slice off the most profitable segments of your business and basically leave your business model with a lot of holes in it?
That's a very good question. I think many things keep me up at night, but I guess the main one when it comes to my professional life is missing the next trend. What could have I thought of, what could have I thought of as part of an executive board of a leading bank that would have positioned us for something? So yes, we do worry about that. We are a particular firm where we deal with wealth management and we deal with high net worth and ultra high net worth individuals, and I believe that displacement is first going to come in that more mass affluent space. Because I do believe the very, very wealthy individuals, they want access, they want convenience, they want expediency, they want it done at less cost, but they also want to talk to a human being. Because it's just important, especially when you're dealing with sophisticated asset allocation strategies, philanthropic events, etc. That human touch, I hope, and I believe will still be there. It's just a matter of how you combine the two in the future.
Thank you very much. So, Angela Todisco, maybe you can talk a little bit about the perspective of a tech company. Clearly, you are facing transformative change all the time, always trying to stay out in front of that wave. How does that impact the way that you work at SAP?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to talk here. And I've been listening. So the first thing that struck me was, once jumped on a train, the train has left the station. So I know that we are talking a lot about also the challenges or threats of digitalization, and definitely we won't deny that. But we as a company, of course, it's our imperative to stay ahead of things, right? So what we strive to do is to really embrace technology with all the challenges we, of course, get, and really discover the opportunities in there. And that's not only in the technological part, of course, coding and staying ahead of technology, being the front runners when it comes to new technologies is definitely the thing. But please don't forget that technology is made by people. So for me, the most important thing is investing in learning and also training. And we had this all over the day also, how education combined with technology is really inspiring and in change, right? So what we are really thinking also about is, how can we use this technology? How can we make best use of it and make sure that we address a larger popularity, not popularity, yes, popularity of course as well, population with that, that we change, because we have to definitely see that, whatever, if you just think that the population is aging faster, but knowledge is commodity. So if you have learned something, maybe the whatever, it will last a year or two in tech at maximum. So the loops in learning are getting very short. The way we learn is different, and we can very, very well leverage AI to have intelligent learning platforms which enhance learning, which you can use to jump in and out of trainings wherever you are, whenever you want, which enables a bigger workforce, or bigger, not only employees, but let's say worldwide opportunities to learn and stay ahead of things, right? Because what's technology used for if nobody can use it at the point? So we are investing a lot in training activities, in female leadership. We are investing in markets like Africa, for instance. We are transporting apprenticeship or vocational training, which is, I think, a very famous German model in having a learning into a job affected in countries like Brazil, China, India, to make sure that we address all available markets. Because with technology, it's not, you cannot keep things for yourself, which is definitely not what we want, right? You have to spread, and with that you have to enable that other parts of the world have access to all kinds of technology.
So let me move on to the question of challenges and risks, and pick up on what I said a moment ago about the perception in many societies that we're basically dealing with these three big categories of challenge and risk, namely privacy, security, and jobs. And clearly in the financial sector, that security piece, privacy piece as well, very, very crucial. So perhaps the two of you could speak to that. Charlotte?
I may speak about cybersecurity. This is something that is absolutely essential for us, because this is one of the main risks we are facing. And if our data are lost or are on the web, then this is the full trust of the banker that is lost. So we cannot afford to have those kinds of problems. So we've spent a lot of money in putting in place new systems, new controls, new politics in order to reduce as much as possible this cyber security risk. But just to give you an example, even if we are making a lot of control, I had the experience about 2 months ago, because we were controlling what was on the net, we discovered that one of our files with the name and the salary of all our employees were found on the internet. And how did we find this? Because we were screening the outbound emails from the company. So we made an analysis of what was going on, and then we discovered that we had someone inside the company, a silly guy, that in fact wanted to share this kind of information with some of their friends. And he got the file because there was a human error and the file was not encrypted. So when I discovered this, you can imagine, in the middle of the demonstration that we have in Paris with the gilets jaunes, so the yellow vest, having all the file of all our employees with the salary of all the employees. So we had to make an inquiry very rapidly, bring the police, do everything, and then discover that, of course, he had not splitted the file everywhere. But that was just, you know, a kind of a situation that can happen because cybersecurity is global, but it also can come from your own employees, and you have to be very, very careful about it. So this is just to give you an example. As a CEO, the topic of data protection of my employees, of my clients, is one of the highest topic on my priority list.
Beatriz Sanchez, can you also speak to that point?
Sure, absolutely. Cybersecurity obviously is a tremendous risk to all of us in the financial world. I think it's a tremendous risk to all of us, period. But the hacking of data for an organization such as a bank is absolutely critical because, as you mentioned, it destroys the confidence in that organization. We at Julius Baer, I know, spend a lot of money building firewalls, focusing on training. Unfortunately, one can never, how do I say, get rid of human error because that's always going to be a factor. We have to price in the risks, but we try to train, we try to mitigate, we try to have 4I strategies, and we try to have stronger firewalls. We deal in an industry where our clients are very, very wealthy, very well-known, very economically and socially relevant individuals around the world. And some of these individuals live in countries that are not secure, that pose risks, physical risks, and many other risks to these individuals. So for us, data security and preserving the confidentiality of our client base is absolutely key, as is the confidentiality of our employees and the confidentiality of how we do business. So it is a challenge. Privacy is a concern. It's less and less a concern as the sort of millennials take over the new wealth, but it's still a relevant concern to our business.
I was recently at an event in Switzerland at which a white hat hacker demonstrated essentially that every single person in the room had no clue when it came to security. He showed the means that cyber criminals would use to enter closed premises, to get into closed systems, and so on. One of the key things that came out of that was what you just said. Employee awareness is so crucial. So what do you do very concretely to foster that?
We provide online courses continually, so it's continuous education every year. You have to take a compliance course, a red flags course, a risk, and a cybersecurity course. We also throw out emails to the greater relationship manager community to see whether they go in and they fall for an email that just doesn't quite look right. And so we continuously test them with these type of phishing exercises, and then we have lessons learned, and for those that tend to click when they shouldn't, then we will give them additional training as well. So we spend a lot. I was reading a statistic a couple of days ago that the average bank in the US spends $18 million a year on this type of stuff. It's a huge cost for finance.
Yeah. Let me ask you, Angela, because clearly in a fully connected Internet of Things, software security is literally a matter of life and death. We could see industrial systems become, essentially be weaponized. What does SAP do in that area, for example, to make sure that critical infrastructure can't be hacked? And must we accept that there simply is a level of vulnerability that we're not going to be able to secure ourselves against?
Yeah, first of all, I can only echo what both of you said, right? Data security is the key right, for all the data. And maybe to answer the last question first, yes, nothing is 100% safe. But this is exactly the reason why we do not only invest a lot in training, also in technology, like firewalls. We as SAP are, I don't know the amount, but we are massively attacked every day by hackers who just want to try to enter the data. So we are always, and we are learning, I'm afraid to say that. So with each attack we know, oh, okay, this is maybe another entry channel, right? And we abolish that. So it's a constant learning and raising the bar. But on the other hand, we are also working, and the European Commission set up let's say, an expert team on artificial intelligence, which is also aiming at the technology part, yes, but also the awareness of, could I call it maybe ethic ownership of things, right? Because yes, you have to invest in people, and the best thing is the human firewall, right? If you detect things are not sounding fishy, are looking strange, just alert that, right? And I think that is the next generation in really having this awareness that a lot of stuff can be prevented if you are aware of your data, if you are, let's say, can you take educated decision on what to do, what to put where, and on very sophisticated authorization concepts, right? Not everybody needs to see every information, and that is what we really work on, so that you have a tailor-made access to data, which doesn't enable you to misuse the information you are handed over.
Thank you very much. We have only a very limited amount of time left, but let me ask all of you to speak very briefly to the question of skills and jobs. And it's a dual question, because from the point of view of the companies, clearly going forward, it's going to be key that you get the kind of trained employees you need, skilled employees you need to make this transition. And perhaps in that context, you can also talk about young women candidates. So that's point number one. And point number two is, how many jobs will there be in future? Will we see AI take over a lot of the kind of jobs that formerly would have been filled by human beings? And if so, what are you doing in your companies to ensure a kind of a balance? So it's two broad questions with a request for brief answers. I'm sorry.
So very briefly, first of all, we are facing a talent war for some specific profile like data scientist or coder in specific codes. And this is a real issue that is also linked to the fact that unfortunately we don't see sufficient women in this type of skills. Out of the schools that train the data scientist or the coding person, there are less than 20% of women that choose this kind of profession, and so we have an issue there, not only because we do not have sufficient offer, but also because when we are talking afterward about artificial intelligence or coding, there would be some bias in the way the men code the algorithm. So that's the first topic. The second topic is about, I would say, the older people in the companies that have difficulties in adapting because the change is going so fast that the transition might be difficult for some of them. So of course we are doing a lot in order to upskill the people, to reskill them. And in my company with 3,500 people, I have put in place what we call strategic workforce planning in order to think about my needs or the needs of the company in 5 years from now, 10 years from now. But all the question is about how do you transform completely the profiles of your company. And to be honest, we don't want to have people left behind, but we are not 100% sure that we will be able to reskill completely the people in the company, especially those that were doing very manual tasks or very limited value-added tasks.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for being so frank. Beatriz Sanchez.
Well, I'll give it a little bit of a different focus. We are a very international bank. We're present in 25 countries around the world. I represent Latin America. I've got over 500 people, of which 50% are sitting in Latin America. So I've got a big group of people sitting in Brazil and Mexico and Chile, Argentina, Uruguay, Bahamas. And so how do you manage not only assuring that we have gender parity, how do we manage the cultural aspects of being a woman in Switzerland versus being a woman in Sao Paulo or being a woman in Mexico City and having a career, and all of the challenges around childcare and all of the challenges, as I say, of leaving your grandmother at home and not carrying her around in your head when it comes to your professional career. So that is really a work in progress. But it also implies that we need to continually be training our people in order for them to stay competitive, to stay not only very well informed with what is going on regionally, but also what is going on locally and what is going on globally. So it requires a lot of training, it requires a lot of mentoring, it requires a lot of advocacy, and it's really a full-time job. And we work very, very closely with our HR to assure that we continue to promote women, that we continue to hire women, but that we continue to keep women, because I think that is the most important thing. We tend to have leaky buckets at that sort of junior VP to senior VP level, and how can we make their careers exciting enough to want to continue to have a career and not decide to just raise a family without a job. So it's a challenge, and it's a continual challenge, and I think technology and access to technology and communication, I think, will help. I don't think it will hinder.
Oh, yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Angela Todisco, please.
Yes, maybe echoing again. So we have set KPIs around women, for instance, about diversity. So we are aiming at having 30% of women in management by 2022. So just, I heard it from the scientists, so if you can measure it, you can reach it. That's basically it. You have to set goals, one. Second is, maybe just let me highlight our Africa Code Week, for instance. So we address different market. Why Africa? Africa is the fastest growing economy when it comes to let's say, digital supply or need. And it's the biggest working age population in the world, right? So huge market. So we have invested, up to now, we funded that in 2015, 13 million euros in having tech courses out and aiming at this point in time, nearly 50% of women. So we have trained around 4 million people, just with open tech courses, giving them access to technology. And we are striving that, right? So we are embracing this and making sure that we invest in the so-called emerging market, because it's vast and huge talent. Then we have Africa.com, so Africa is coming, where we also target talented young students, and I'm very proud to have one of those in my team. And last but not least, because one of your questions was, okay, what about the jobs? What about new jobs? To be honest, I can't answer that. But let's be honest. A couple of years ago, nobody knew what a blogger is or an influencer, right? And now these seem to be a legitimate job profile. So just let's see what comes. Don't be afraid, just embrace it. We'll find a solution, and that is my firm belief, and I think that's what we all are working for, right?
Great, yeah, Schumpeter. Thank you very much. Great last words there, and I appreciate very much all three of you taking the time. So, thanks to you.